Hi, David Ellenstein here, Artistic Director of North Coast Repertory Theatre. Thank you for tuning in today to our theater conversations. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. That would help us out a lot. Thank you. It's my great pleasure today to be having a conversation with Judith Ivey. Judith Ivey is a two-time Tony-winning actress, four-time Tony-nominated actress, lifetime in the theater and on film and on television, and just an amazing career. We were lucky enough at North Coast Rep to have Judy come out and direct a wonderful production of the play Chapatti a couple of years ago, a beautiful Irish play about two people who are kind of down in life and they find each other later in life and it kind of turns their lives around, or that's the impression that it leaves. But it was a charming, wonderful production. And I'm happy to say Judy became a friend of mine and of our theaters. So I'm so happy to have you here. Thanks for doing this, Judy.
Well, thank you. It's a nice distraction from all the stuff that's going on in our world right now.
Indeed, and you're in New York, so you're particularly feeling it, right?
Well, it does kind of throw you when you hear you're living in the epicenter, you know. I mean, I just came back from a walk, so the picture you're getting is probably, let's say, more dire than I'm actually living. But I think there's a massive number of us who are escaping, knock wood, the horrible tragedy of this.
Right.
We just happen to live here.
Actors like to be in the epicenter, don't they? No, I'm just kidding.
Not this kind.
Not this kind. Not this. Let's keep the drama on stage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, let's not talk about that now. That's no fun. Let's talk about what our passion is, which is acting and directing in the theater and doing film. So you've done tons of plays in your life. When I put you on the spot right now and I say, what are one or two that just jump out at you when you think about your career in the theater and go, that was what it's about for me? Which ones jump into your mind?
Wow, that is a hard one. Well, I think of ones that I knew at the time were historic for the theater. A play like Hurlyburly by David Rabe. Nothing had been written like that before. It was certainly historic in my career. I got to work with Mike Nichols as a director. I got to act with William Hurt. I got to work with David Rabe and watch the process of how you put a new play together. We started out in Chicago at the Goodman Theater, and then we moved to an off-Broadway theater in New York, and then eventually we moved to Broadway. So it was an entire year of my life, and I watched it, you know, grow and blossom and expand and become complicated, and all the people and all the adjustments and the response to it, which was phenomenal. Good, bad, and different. It was a provocative play. So I knew that it was, in that sense, historic. One I completely enjoyed doing was Precious Sons by George Firth, which was one of the few plays he wrote. He basically wrote the books to many musicals with Sondheim. He wrote Company and Merrily We Roll Along. But he wrote this play, which is really rather autobiographical, about growing up in show business as a young kid, which he did in Chicago in the 30s and 40s. And it was a wonderful character. I acted with Ed Harris and Anthony Rapp and William O'Leary, and we were this wonderful, crazy little family. That meant a lot to me. I loved B. Small was her name, which of course was somewhat of a pun because she wasn't small. But that one meant a lot to me and stuck with me through the years. I would say that just recently I had a great experience with a new play called Greater Clements by Sam Hunter, who I think is one of the new American playwrights. The role in it that I played, it was at Lincoln Center at the Mitzi Newhouse Theater. And the role I played was like doing Lear. So it was endless and so demanding and so fulfilling, with an incredible cast. Edmund Donovan played my son, and we just clicked from the absolute beginning. And it was momentous. I know that this was another provocative play, another one that for the ages, that will be done again and again. And the challenge is to be a woman in her 60s who has to carry the show, which is, there were nights I just thought, I'm not going to make it. I'm just not going to make it. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience.
You had the opportunity to play Amanda Wingfield, I believe, a couple of times in Glass Menagerie. What about working on a classic role and play like that? Is that something that sticks with you in a different way?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed I didn't list her. I wanted to play her since I was 18 years old, and discovered the theater. I was thinking of new plays because most of my career is, a world premiere. Which is great. I find that very fortunate. I love working on new plays. But Amanda Wingfield would have to be, in terms of doing a classic, was the experience of a lifetime. I don't need to do another one. I've had some other classical roles, but I would say she took the cake. And in that case, it was almost a year of my life as well, because I did it starting at the Long Wharf Theatre. And then the Roundabout invited us to come and do it there. And then the Mark Taper. So I was out in Los Angeles doing it there. And it was a great progression. Our family unit stayed the same, but each production had a different gentleman caller, which I thought was apropos. We couldn't keep one, we kept losing them just like you do in the play. And that was fun because it, of course, changed the production because each gentleman caller was a little bit different from the one before. So it was really an interesting acting lesson.
So you alluded to it being a role you wanted to play all the way since you discovered the theater back when you were 18. What got you excited about the theater and made you go into it?
I struggle with this question every time. I wanted to be a painter, and I did not think of myself as an actress. We moved a lot when I was a kid, and the last move we made, the only thing in terms of a club or student government or anything that was open, because I moved in late, obviously, was the school play. And I'd never been in a play. And so I went and auditioned and got in it. And then I did speech contests. And then I was in the play the next year. And when I was graduating, different people said, where are you going to go to college? What are you going to, you've got to keep doing this. You're good at it. And I kept thinking, oh, they're just being nice to me. And I really wanted to be a visual artist. So I kind of got pulled into it is the way I think of it, because I did audition and got a scholarship in acting. I still thought I was going to go and work, be an art student, and the art department was so snooty they wouldn't let you double major. So since the theater department was paying my way, I basically had to get a theater degree. And then as soon as I finished that, I thought, well, that's the end of that, and so here I am 46 years later, and I still don't know what it is. I know that I think of this profession in a service way. I really feel that it's, we're there for the people, and not everybody's good at telling stories. As we all know, you know, the aunt or the uncle at Thanksgiving who starts a joke and they're awful at it. A joke is the shortest way to tell a story. So I guess I am pretty good at it. And once you get into it and start learning the skills of it and reading the history of it and then attending yourself and being an audience member, I truly developed an awe for it as a profession. So I felt that it was a very noble, challenging place for me to be in order to express myself. I was also a very shy person, which a lot of people in this profession start out being shy people, and it's a little bit therapeutic. It brings you out of yourself. I much prefer playing people who are not me, and that's usually who I get asked to play. I rarely get asked to play someone that's so Judith Ivey. But that, I would say, I was pulled into it. I didn't have this passion.
One of the few actors I know who was dragged into the profession, kicking and screaming.
And then some people are going, "Oh, please, you know, you didn't have to stay."
So you have been directing more lately, and that's become sort of a co-equal with your acting at this point. Talk about the difference between directing and acting for you.
Well, directing, you know, you get to make most of the decisions. I try, because when I'm acting, I like to be included in those decisions and not be dictated to. So that's how I try to direct. But ultimately, you're the one who gets to say, I like that set. I like those costumes. I like that lighting. I want this music, and I want you to play the scene this way. And that's really fun because in a sense you are painting. So in my mind, I'm still getting to be a visual artist. I'm getting to put all the elements together instead of just being the one element when you're acting.
Right. I always found that as an actor, I could play a part in a play that I didn't really like because all I had to do was play my part. But it's much harder to direct a play that you don't really like because you have to take the totality into consideration.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. And so, sometimes you go into it and you love it, and then you fall out of love with it, which is, you know, so disappointing when that happens. It's like, oh, I thought we were going to get married, you know. So, no, we're not.
No, it was just an affair, a brief one.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of film and television as well. What is the satisfaction you get there, and how is it different from theater? Aside from the financial gains you get.
Well, being the snob that I am about the theater versus film and television, the financial plays a big part of it. But I think that the roles I've enjoyed in film and television, it's the size. Literally, it's a technical adjustment. And I really get into that. You know, I always jokingly say, I'm a Virgo. That's not a joke. I am a Virgo, but I like the precision of stuff. So when I have to scale a performance down because the eye is so close to me, I kind of get off on that. And I have enjoyed it through the years, especially with film, because they usually play it back and you can see it. TV's moving too fast. They're not going to take time for you to see your work and go back and fix it. And most of the television that I did to a great degree were half-hour sitcoms, and that's like doing a play, little short play in front of an audience as they're filming it. So you don't really watch yourself on that either. But I did enjoy getting to sculpt in a way the performance in a way that you can't really do as on the stage. The stage is much more about the expanse of it and the reaching out and presentation of it.
So you're painting and sculpting. See, you did become a fine artist.
It doesn't go away.
So is there a film experience that you think of as more satisfying than others? And if so, why?
Well, one of my early projects was actually a mini what they used to call miniseries.
Right.
They don't call them that anymore. They're limited series. And it was a remake of The Long Hot Summer. And it was a great part. I played the role that Joanne Woodward played in the 1958 movie. I think it was 1958. And Don Johnson was the drifter that came in, and I had such fun with him. And Jason Robards played the patriarch, my dad, and I had such a good time with him. It was demanding, and it was also difficult to figure out how to arc a character over that much time, because it's a lot of film. And that was one of the first experiences where I really, really loved it. I got to do a funny comedy called The Lonely Guy with Steve Martin and Charles Grodin, and all I did was go to work and laugh. And they wrote some of the Lonely Guy scenes on the spur, and I'd come to work and they'd come to my trailer and sit down and say, okay, listen to this. And then they'd read the scene, and it was, they played the lonely guys. So it would be a scene between the lonely guys, and I'd laugh, and it was hilarious. And then one day they finally said, she laughs at everything. Why are we listening to her? But they were funny. But that was a great job to be able to,
that
do
sounds
that.
like a lot of fun. So you have negotiated having a full-time career in theater and film and a family.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the challenges of doing that? I mean, you have 2 children, and you're married, and you've lived a full life away from show business as well as in show business. How do you do that? Most people have great trouble with that. How have you managed?
Well, I married a great guy, and he understood that this was my life's work, and it wasn't going to stop because I married him, and I wasn't going to stop because I had kids. Not that we ever sat down and actually talked about it that way. I think it was just a given. But he was also in the business. He produced a lot of cable television, all of it non-theatrical, which made a great situation for us, because then when he didn't cast me, it was because he didn't cast anything. They were animal shows. So I couldn't play the crocodile. But he understood the craziness and mostly the scheduling, how you have to be ready to go, and then it'll come to an end, and then you can come home. And so we made a point that our children were never going to be raised by just babysitters. And so when I was working and away from the home, then he would be home, and vice versa. Because when he did do a lot of the wildlife shows, he had to travel for that. So he would be gone to some of the outer regions of the world, photographing polar bears and lemurs and all kinds of odd things, elephants. And that's why I did a lot of half-hour sitcoms, because then I would be at home a lot, because that's kind of like having a day job. You don't have to disappear. You always go back to the same location right there by your house. So we just balanced it back and forth, and we kept our kids with us all the time. When I would take off and go do a play in New York for a limited run, they would come with me. And then my husband, Tim, would come and get them, and then they'd go back to California for a while, and then they'd come back to me depending on the run of the show. And it was fun for them, and schools were everybody was just understanding. So as long as we stayed, isn't this fun? It seemed to work out. They're 26 and 30 now, so they survived it in case it was awful.
You had them both when you were a teenager, huh?
Oh yeah, that's true. I was just telling someone the other day, I was 38 when I had my daughter, and they literally put on the crib after she was born elderly mother, and they rolled her in, after they cleaned her all up and then gave her back to me. It said on there, elderly mother. I said, well, I'm so glad I didn't see that till after I gave birth. It might have hampered the giving of birth.
I love that. So here we are at a time where we can't do theater because we can't gather in groups, and the theater is dependent on our sitting together alive in a room all at once and experience it. I have every confidence that we're going to come back stronger than ever. But can you talk about that unique experience of being in a room with hundreds of people experiencing the same story being done live in front of them, and why it's important and why it will continue?
Well, I think back to your question about why did you, become an actress? How did this happen for you? I did develop this awe and profound respect for what it is as a part of our society, to tell each other stories that I always call them the 3 E's: educate, entertain, and enlighten. And, a great production does all 3. Sometimes a play will maybe only have the capacity to entertain and educate. Or maybe the enlightening is not necessarily part of the script or something. Anyway, I think it's profound when we all sit together in a room, and it is just as much a job for the audience to be there ready to listen and be open to a story as it is for the actors to be ready to tell it. And therefore the exchange, especially and only in the theater, is between all of us. And it is why I prefer the theater over film and television, because I'm having an experience with an audience member at the same time. I know it looks like I'm not, but I am. And that's it. It's wonderful. It's when I years ago, when I started doing film, I didn't enjoy it because even I did a lot of comedies and they literally couldn't laugh because then it would be on the soundtrack. So the payoff for me was watching some crew guy get the giggles while I was doing my shtick or whatever, and he'd have to go and cover his mouth. I thought, yay, that's the laugh that you get when you're in the theater. It is a communal event, isn't it? I mean, it can't be replaced by film and television in the same way. It's a different experience. You can't get up and go to the bathroom. Well, I guess you could, but I never do.
Well, we hope that those that need to will.
Yes.
Well, this is not going to replace having you live at North Coast Rep, but it's a way to stay in touch with you and keep our audience in tune with you a little bit. So I'm looking forward to the next time when you can come out here and direct a play, or who knows, maybe even act in a play here. It would be great to have you back here. And I'm just so happy that you did this today, and I thank you so much.
Well, I had such a great time when I was with you, and I wish you so many good things. I am like you. I believe we will come back even bigger and better. But I certainly, to you specifically, say I wish you bigger and better.
Well, thank you. Thank you for today, and stay safe and well.
You too. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Judy.
Bye.